This might be a hard question to answer. Don't you feel bad for running past all the beauty on the trails, not stopping to enjoy it?
I think isolating Ultrarunners and saying, does this particular group of people possess an inability to appreciate the trail, I think is almost a bit prejudiced, I guess you could say. I guess it's a sensitive subject. I'm not trying to go fast on the Appalachian Trail. I'm just trying to endure as much as I can until I pretty much pass out.
How's it going, everybody? Welcome to Trail Tales. My name is Kyle O'Grady. I am a huge hiking nerd, and every single week on this podcast, I chat with other hiking nerds about their experiences on the trail. This is a history breaking. Oh boy, it's early. Historical episode of Trail Tales, and the reason is because this is the earliest episode I've ever recorded. It's actually not that early. If you guys actually saw what time it was, you'd probably just think I was a baby, but it's early for me, and I haven't even finished my first cup of coffee yet, so I might not be on my A game today, but I'm sure as hell gonna try, and it's so worth it because we have an amazing guest this week. Also, speaking of history and record breaking, Kristian Morgan is on the show. He is a repeat guest on Trail Tales, and he over the summer set the Southbound FKT, fastest known time, aka speed record for the Appalachian Trail. And I am so incredibly excited to talk to him. Kristian Morgan, welcome back to the show. How's it going, man?
Hey Kyle, thanks for having me back. It's nice to be here again. I think this is the third time, right?
Yeah, at least. Maybe fourth? Did you do two before we got the chance to meet up this summer? I can't remember, honestly, but at least third, maybe fourth.
Yeah, I think it's the third, yeah.
Okay, I guess you would probably know better than I do because these do kind of blend together a little bit sometimes. Not always, though, because it's not every day that I get the chance to talk to someone who is so accomplished and has the Southbound record and second fastest time overall on the Appalachian Trail. So the last time that Kristian was on the show, it was actually an in-person episode. I was living up in New Hampshire over the summer. He was up there training. It was just shortly before his record-breaking run, I guess. And we got the chance, to talk in person. The audio quality was terrible on that. I don't know if you listened back to that one, Kristian, but I'm sorry. I kind of butchered that one. I got a couple complaints, so also sorry to everyone who listened to it. But this one will be much better. Dude, this was your, if I recall, fourth time going for the record?
Yes.
Fourth time going for the record. Now, you went SOBO this time, and you ended up getting the SOBO record, but you didn't get the overall, I guess record. Were you focused on the SOBO record more, or were you going for, I already know the answer to this, going for the I don't know, overall record, I guess. Can you tell I'm not a runner? Like I don't know the proper terms here, but I'll do my best.
Yeah. No, I think you're doing pretty good, Kyle. I was going for the overall record, and the Southbound record, I must say, was my kind of B goal. And then the reason I had a B goal was because, as you know, but maybe not everybody else knows, is last year I went Northbound, and I got the second fastest time ever on the Appalachian Trail. So what I didn't want to do was, if I fell off record pace, have nothing else to reach for except for a repeat experience of last year. So I decided to go south, and I decided that if I did fall off record pace, at least I would still have the Southbound record to shoot for. And that was just to be fair to my crew who are dedicating all this time, and also, I guess, stay motivated myself.
Yeah, it makes sense. So like I said, I already knew the answer to that question, and it was honestly kind of a lead into this next question. This is something I was thinking about the other day. We're going deep right off the bat here, so I hope you're ready, Kristian. Again, I'm not a runner, certainly not going for any FKTs, and I never will be. So my perspective is quite naive when it comes to this stuff, clearly, but I'm just curious if if having that fallback goal, if you think having that, I guess, that fallback goal would have hurt your chances of getting the overall record. It's almost like knowing in the back of your mind there is like something you can fall back on, if that, maybe even subconsciously would make it so that you were less likely to get that overall goal, versus if you had no fallback, no plan B, and you just had to just do or die, like go for that one overall goal. Is this something you've thought about at all? Like, can you speak to that a little bit?
Yeah, no, I would agree with you actually. Even if it's subconscious, there's this kind of, you've set the bar so high, but then there's also a second bar, to reach for. So I think you're right. Like subconsciously knowing that there's something else out there which isn't exactly failure, but it also means you don't have to reach so far, could almost be your the doom, your downfalling of why you don't set the record. So we can get onto this later on, but let's leave it till later anyway, what I was going to say. But yeah, I agree with you there. Yeah.
Why do we need to leave it till later?
No, I was going to say that I'm going to go for the record in 2024. Northbound.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, you just said it, so
Yeah.
That makes actually a ton of sense why you wanted to save it till later. But you said it now, so we might as well talk about it. I was going to ask you that for sure at some point. I mean, this past year was your fourth time, and I was thinking about this before you made your announcement. I was like, I wonder if he's going to go for it again. Because on one hand, obviously he's quite persistent, four times. But on the other hand, it's also been 4 times. And so maybe at some point he will, I hate to say quit, but you know what I mean? Just like, give it up. But that's not the case, huh? Did you know, like, as soon as you were done, you were going to go for it again? Or is this something that took a couple weeks to come to? Can you just talk about that decision a little bit?
Yeah, actually, I was on another podcast with someone called Finn, the single track podcast, right? And he asked me a question. He said, or actually he told me, he said he had heard on another podcast that I did, so we go 3 podcasts back, that 300 miles before the finish, I was already thinking about a 2024 attempt. And he woke up my memory. So yeah, actually about 300 miles before the finish, 6 days out, I actually started already thinking, well, actually I could change this and I could change that, and I could improve on this mistake. And so, yeah, before I even finished, I already started thinking, how could I improve before I finished this year? Yeah.
Damn. That's crazy. At that point, I followed your track a little bit, but I wasn't following the times and stuff. At that point, when you started to think about doing another attempt, I'm assuming then you must have realized that you probably weren't going to get the overall record. Is that correct?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I mean, I think I knew pretty early on that I wasn't going to get the overall record. Yeah. I don't know if you know, Kyle, about the trail conditions this year, but a lot of hikers actually had to get off trail and either quit their hike or even get back on trail a couple of weeks later. So I was actually delayed by a month and a half starting. And then when I did start, the weather conditions, it was almost like the aftermath of bad weather conditions. So yeah, I had that to contend with early on, and that was up north. So obviously going on a southbound direction, I was really, that really upset my pace, so early on I kind of started to get behind the record pace, and knew pretty early on that I forget exactly where it was. I mean, I always kept hope, I never fully just threw in the towel, and I always had hope that I could gain this time back on the current record. But eventually I think there came a point where I said, okay, I'm going to let it go, and I'm going to just continue doing my best and the best I can do, and bag that southbound FKT.
Right. Yeah, I remember because the last time that we spoke, it was only if I recall, it might have only been like a week and a half or 2 weeks before you were supposed to start. And then, we got the chance to hike together and hang out a little bit, which was super cool. Honestly, one of the highlights of my summer, by the way, but that's besides the point. And then I remember, at one point I think you called me and you were just like, hey, like, I don't know if it's going to happen anymore. And obviously I was well aware of the trail conditions up north, being up there for most of the summer. And I felt really bad for all the AT through hikers and just anyone who was trying to do anything on trail in the Northeast this summer. And so you called me and you were like, I don't know if it's going to happen or whatever, which I appreciated. And then you still ended up going for it though. So that, again, I don't know anything about doing this kind of record attempt or anything like that, but I imagine that such a chaotic start and like, oh, we're going to go for it. Oh, never mind. We're pushing it back. Actually, we might not go for it at all. Okay. Actually, maybe we can. That chaos, that couldn't have helped you. I imagine.
Yeah, actually, like I had a measuring stick because obviously up north I had the opportunity to go up to Mount Katahdin, run down to kind of A-Ball Bridge, and I did that as a training run. I did that 3 times before I started.
Oh wow!
And like I felt really good every single time. And the irony is that when I finally did start the attempt, that day I felt so crap, coming down. Like I didn't feel like I was primed in my training. I felt, I just didn't feel right, in comparison to the other 3 attempts. And it was just something, obviously, I just had to, being delayed is just it was one of these things they say is like control the controllables, and it was something totally out of my control. So I had to just kind of suck it up and just accept the conditions and react positively, I guess. But that was the worst I felt, and it was unfortunate, to start off feeling so shitty because I felt so good on the other training runs, I guess.
Yeah, well, it is what it is, I guess. One thing I'm sure that we talked about in our last episode, given we were together in New Hampshire, is the training that you were doing there. And so I'm just curious, in hindsight now, how do you think that was beneficial? Like spending, what was it, at least a month, maybe even more, up in the Northeast in New Hampshire, ripping around on the trails in the White Mountains. How did that end up preparing you? And do you think it was a good decision and maybe one that you would do again?
Yeah, that's a good question. I felt really good. I was invited to stay at my friend's Veronica Leeds house. She has a beautiful home. In fact, you picked me up from there.
It is beautiful. I'm so jealous. Yeah. I'm not going to say where it is, obviously, but beautiful spot.
Of course.
With a nice
location,
view of the mountains.
Non disclosed or whatever it is. But like, what happened was when I got delayed, I started to feel I was outstaying my welcome, and they were so nice and polite to me. And, they gave me the hospitality of using their home. But when you start getting delayed by like 6 weeks and you're staying at someone's house, you start to feel, like a bit like you're imposing, so. But I got to say, though, I loved the training, man. I love being in the whites. I have such a passion. I met some cool, handstand. She's got the white dreadlocks.
Oh, Liz Kidder?
Yeah, like I met her one day on the trail, and I stopped and we started chatting, and she was really cool. And no, I just like the trail. So I just enjoyed being there. I had like 3 phases to my training last year. It was recover in Spain, prepare in Thailand, and fine tune in New Hampshire. And I gotta say, I loved all 3 parts of it. Yeah.
What a life. 3 different, very different locations. Super cool, man. Yeah. I don't know. When I learned that you were, up in New Hampshire fine tuning, I guess, as you just said there, I was like, that's there's got to be a good decision because, the whites and Southern Maine are generally, it's a little bit subjective, of course, but generally considered the most difficult part of the 18. So it only makes sense that if you're going to be going for, a very difficult thing like setting a speed record, that it would be good to do some training in the heart of what is considered the most difficult part of the trail. And so I thought that was smart. And not to mention, the whites are just awesome too. So it's always good to get to spend some time there.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you got to say, like, did I get in? Like, a lot of people who go south, I think the last couple of southbound record attempts one was Scott Jurek, and he got a quad injury. So I got to think that his quads weren't ready for that kind of terrain. And then the other person was John Harden, and he also got some kind of quad injury or some injury. So I guess because I didn't get injured, my training in the New Hampshire and the whites proved successful because I didn't get injured. So it worked. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it makes sense for sure. What was your time last year and this year? Like, how did those two times stack up against each other?
Yeah, last year I ran 44 days, 4 hours and 54 minutes. So
and that's the second fastest time.
That's the second fastest time in the world. It's like 2.8 days slower than the current record held by Carol Sabet, who also this year reset the PCT record.
And he... By the way, I was going to tell you this actually. He ran by me when I was out there, and it was kind of funny because I knew he was out there, but I didn't really know what he looked like or where he was. I wasn't following his attempt or anything, and so I'm sitting at a water source, and then this guy comes running up. I hadn't been seeing many hikers, and I hadn't seen any trail runners. I'd been out there for I think like 3 or 4 days at this point. And he comes up to the water source. I wasn't like creeping on him, so I didn't see exactly what he did, but he like changed his shirt and grabbed some water or something, and then just kept going. And I was like, I'm pretty sure that's him, but I'm not 100% sure. So I didn't say anything, besides just a hello. But then I went and I looked at his page when I got to town, and like he was wearing all the same clothing in his recent posts and stuff. So I was like, oh damn, that was him. That's pretty cool. But I don't know. Sorry to go on that tangent there.
No, that's good. It's good to always see, like I said, seeing Liz Kidder on trail. Just someone who you'd heard about before you meet them. It's always fun,
Yeah, it is for sure. But anyways, I totally got a sidetrack there. What was your time this year on the SOBO FKT?
Yeah, it's like 45 days, 4 hours. So almost like a full 24 hours. And I think it was 54 minutes or something like that. So you talked about the conditions, especially up north. That must have played a role, I'm assuming, in a slightly slower time. Is there anything else that you can think of, or just generally, what do you think added that extra 25 hours, it sounds like? Yeah, I think it was the delayed start by 6 weeks. That definitely didn't help. I was on a speaking to Zach Bitter, who has the Human Performance Outliers podcast, and he was once the world record holder for 100 miles on a track. He said there's no way I could train for something can be delayed by 6 weeks. I just don't understand how you did that. So I guess starting, it was a case of, okay, I'm going to start, but I'm not feeling great, but I'm going to start anyway, because this is my only opportunity. Mm-hmm. So probably being delayed wasn't great. And then the weather, of course, or the aftermath of the weather wasn't great.
What were the trail conditions like more specifically?
Well, I guess in last year I was lucky because I went through Vermont, and it was not muddy, I guess that it was some kind of drought or something. But this year I got to experience why they call it Vermont. And I got this little overuse injury just on the, in between my, lower So above my right ankle. And it's because I was going through mud for like days and days and days. And it's almost like, you know, when you run through sand, I don't know if anyone out there has ever run barefoot on sand or played volleyball, or kind of, you get these, really, you start using little muscles you're not used to. So running through mud, created this kind of overuse injury that I got just above my right ankle. So I actually took a day off trail, actually.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, good old Vermud. That's my home. It's actually going to be talked about a little bit on the next episode. But anyways, I'm realizing how finicky, which maybe this is stupid, maybe this is obvious to most people, but just how finicky these things are. It's not like setting a record on a track where the conditions are going to be the same all the time. Everything's going to be uniform. Something like the AT is obviously going to be changing, you know, between different people's record attempts. Hell, the trail itself is going to be slightly different every time, because every year there's little reroutes and new sections, and a couple miles are added or a couple miles are taken away. That's something I haven't really thought too much about in terms of these speed records and how much of a difference that can make. Were there any other, besides the trail conditions, were there any other like major or even just noteworthy, I guess, differences between this past year, 2023, and your attempts in the past?
Yeah, I mean, like going south, like you said, maybe even subconsciously having that second goal, you know, and instead of just having a singular goal, suddenly you have two goals. And there's this saying, the body takes the path of least resistance. Mm-hmm. And I think, yeah, like actually having that second. So when I go north next year, I got one objective. I don't have a B goal. You know, I just want to break the record on the Appalachian Trail. I want to smash it.
Hell yeah.
Yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh yeah. So speaking of, you know, the direction that you went, you've done an attempt northbound, you've gone southbound now. Why, you said you're going northbound on your attempt next year. Why are you flipping that again? Do you think there's any strategic advantage to going northbound, or is it just for the sake of something different? Like, what went into that decision?
So there's a few. Can I speak about all of them? Okay. Number one, definitely what you said about is it's black and white. You're going for the record, the overall record. You're not going for a southbound record. So there's only one objective. I'm going to go for the record on the Appalachian Trail, and I'm heading north. The second reason for going north is it's a lot easier to track where you are against the record when you're going the same direction as the record was set. Like on day one, I know that Carol stopped at Unico Gap, you know? So like on day one, if I get to Unico Gap, I'm on pace. You know, if I'm ahead of that, I'm ahead of the record. And if I'm behind it, I'm behind. Whereas if you go south, doesn't matter where you get, you don't know where you are against the record. It's almost like going blindfolded until, I guess, when you're more, I mean, it's really tough, you know, to find out where you are. And then I guess another one of my reasons is because I just really like the aesthetics of actually going north. I was always torn. When anyone ever asked me, do you want to go south? You know, there's the southbound record you can shoot for as well. I always said, you know, I don't think so. And eventually, I guess I talked myself into it, and I got talked into it. I did decide eventually it was the right thing to do this year. But for me, next year, the right thing to do is go for the northbound record. There's one goal. I really like the idea of being able to keep track against where I am, against Carol on his daily miles. I want to finish at Katahdin as well, rather than Springer. And then finally, if I get the record going north, I think it's going to be pretty cool, man, that no one ever in history has held the southbound record and the Northbound record.
Oh.
I think that would be something which would be pretty hard to beat. You'd have to have someone look at it as a 2-year project. And so I think that would be pretty cool to have records in both directions.
Yeah, I'm learning so much. Yeah, I never thought about that. That would be pretty cool. And also, I never thought about the pacing aspect. It definitely makes sense hearing you talk about it, how it'd be a lot easier to see how on track you are, for the record when you're hiking or you're running the same direction as the record was set. That certainly seems a lot easier. Yeah, dude. I learn so much every time I talk to you, Kristian. I love this stuff. And again, I'm not a runner. I would like to compete in an ultra marathon, but I'm not going to be winning or setting any FKTs. I would just more like to do it for myself. But I don't know. It's always so fun. Yeah, I learn more stuff every time I chat with you, dude.
I definitely got to say though, for everyone listening and including yourself, that like I always, when I just talk about what I did on the Appalachian Trail, I always put I run hike, because like you definitely like the wildcats, I mean, you're climbing, you're not even hiking there. So I definitely do a combination of running and hiking. And, I have to, and I'll tell later on in my story how I actually learned something from you, when we went on our hike in New Hampshire, but we can come back to that. But I'm definitely a runner hiker, not just a runner. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a cool thing to talk about.
Yeah.
Because that's something I've always struggled with as I've very slowly over the last few years got into trail running a little bit. It's like, how do you what is a trail run exactly? Because like you just said, you're not running all the time. And if you're someone like me, you're not running that much, to be honest. Like I went out yesterday and I did a hike and it was only, 6 miles maybe, but like a good third of it was straight the fuck up. And so there's no way I'm running on that. Actually, a lot of it was like almost like climbing. It was pretty technical stuff. And so it's like, I don't know, for you, sorry, let me say that again. For you, what is like the cutoff between when you're jogging or when you're hiking? Is it a certain grade? Is it the conditions? Is it a combination of everything? Is it how you're feeling physically at the moment? Can you just kind of talk about like the running versus the power hiking aspect a little bit?
Yeah, definitely. I think at this point, being like 2 decades into it, it's definitely a feeling. So I just have a switch, and I switch it one way and I'm hiking. I switch it the other way and I'm running. And it's almost like a subconscious internal switch that I don't even really acknowledge, I mean, there's definitely sections on the Appalachian Trail when you come to the wildcats I mentioned earlier. When you come to the wildcats, you're kind of climbing, going up if you're heading north, and I guess descending, climbing if you're coming down. But then there's certain opportunities, I guess, where there's some gentle inclines, and it's a lot easier to hike them than it is to jog them. But if you jog them, you're going to probably move a little bit quicker. And I guess this is the tricky part. There's a saying in ultra running, I've heard people call it douche grade, right? And what that means is you can't climb it, you can't really hike it, and it's too hard to run. So it's this kind of douche grade where you don't know what to do. So it's confusing, but eventually, I guess if you're focused and like you're pretty strong on the uphills, you can start jogging the gentle inclines. And that makes a big difference. But anything flat, anything downhill, not crazy technical like climbing or scrambling, you're kind of jogging everything. Yeah. Yeah.
So you're obviously very experienced on the AT at this point. Not only, 2 successful, right?
I've two completions.
Complete,
Last year,
rather, yeah.
second fastest overall, and this year fastest south.
And the first two attempts, obviously, you were still able to do some of the trail. And then I also know that you went and just backpacked a good, what was it, like 500 mile section of trail, which I still think is so cool. But I'll spare people from going into that because we actually talked about it quite a bit in our last episode. So you're obviously very familiar with the AT. I'm wondering if there's any sections in particular, any spots you can think of that just give you trouble for some reason. Any infamous spots for you specifically in your experiences?
So it's kind of such a coincidence that last year when I was going for my record attempt, I got to Vermont and I was on day 31 and I had a 27-mile lead on the record and it whittled down to 10 miles. And I got to this road crossing and I felt so much pressure. I'd let Carol get into my head. You know, Carol's the record holder. And I was thinking, what a great athlete Carol is. And I started to forget what my objective was, started to lose my confidence and started to just break under pressure. And eventually I broke, but I was still 10 miles ahead of record pace. And I actually got off a road crossing in Vermont. I forget the road crossing. I'll learn the name, I'm sure. And I got off and I said to the crew, I said, listen guys, I'm done. So they drove me to a motel. I think I'd done 16 miles that day. I stayed in a motel and I got back on trail the next day, late in the morning. So I kind of lost a full day. Mm-hmm. Going south this year, I had that small overuse injury I was talking about above my right ankle. And I was actually at one point on my hands and knees, I was crawling and I was crying and I was in so much pain. I said, okay, listen, I'm really sorry. I'm going to listen to you. I was talking to my body. I'm like, really sorry. I'm going to listen to you. We're going to get off trail and I'm going to give you a rest and we're going to see what you give me tomorrow because I understand at the moment we can't move forwards, you know? And so I got to the road crossing and I looked around and I said, hey guys, after I told my crew I was going to get off trail and we needed to go to a motel and rest. Isn't this where I got off trail last year? You know what, Kyle? It was the same road crossing, man. Wow. Yeah. And I kind of started, I think I laughed and cried at the same time. It was just weird emotions like, oh, I can't believe this is happening here. And I got off trail and I got back on trail the next day and set the southbound record.
I really want to know which road that is because obviously I'm very familiar with that part of the trail. So yeah. I'm curious which one it is.
Yeah, I'll have to find out because I'll be more specific. Yeah.
So one of the things I did in preparation for this episode was I polled my audience because the vast majority of people that listen to this podcast are not runners and they're certainly not FKT. Here I go again, making up terms. FKT setters, obviously. There's only a few of those. You know what I mean? They're just regular hikers, you could say. And so I wanted to give them an opportunity to ask questions to someone who, you know, is very accomplished in this, you know, space. And so one of the most common questions that I got was, you know, let me just read a couple of them here.
Yeah.
Both these questions kind of encompass the same thing. So one person asks, don't you feel bad for running past all the beauty on the trails, not stopping to enjoy it? And another person said, I really want to know, where's the joy? Do they find peace in nature? It's an accomplishment for sure, but do they ever hear that they miss the point of being out on these trails? And I wanted to ask this too, actually. Yeah. I kind of understand the appeal, to be honest, as I've gotten more into trail running and more into pushing myself. But it's a very reasonable question, I think, for people to just be like, hey, the reason I come out here is to enjoy nature. And if I'm just rushing through, you know, just focused on time, it seems like that might take away from that a little bit. So how do you balance the enjoyment with the athletic aspect, the competitive aspect? Yeah, I'm sure this is something you've gotten before and thought about. So can you speak to that?
Yeah, definitely. So Warren Doyle just the Outside magazine or something did an article on Warren Doyle, and I'm halfway through reading it, and it's really interesting because he's finished the Appalachian Trail 18 times, and he talks about these speed. He set the first record on the AT 66 days, and he doesn't like the term speed record attempt, and he calls it an endurance record or an endurance attempt. So actually, I think what people are getting confused with and then become, like, I guess, slightly critical and a little bit negative towards it is that actually what I'm doing, and I completely agree with Warren, it's not about speed. It's about endurance. So like, I'm not trying to go fast on the Appalachian Trail. I'm just trying to endure as much as I can until I pretty much pass out each day. You know, so like if you think of it in terms of this isn't a speed record, this is an endurance record. So like what I achieved this year had nothing to do with speed. It was all to do with like endurance. So if you think of it that way, and me too, I guess it takes out that negative aspect of like rushing past something or speeding past something. Because in fact, what you're doing is you're just really doing almost what a thru hiker's doing, except for you're jogging the flats. I mean, I see thru hikers jogging. Like when I was with the class of 2021, as you said, I hiked a 500-mile section. These guys were like jogging the flats and jogging the downhills, same as a speed record attempt. So I got to say, let's make. I'm actually going to change my approach to how I my terminology from now on. And I'm actually going to start calling this an endurance record attempt. And even the word fastest known time, I'm actually more comfortable with endurance record. So I'm going to go with that. I'm going to go with endurance record. And to the people who say, I think it kind of changes the question now. If that person was to say, oh, you're enduring 16 hours a day on the Appalachian Trail every day, how can you enjoy that? Well, I love the Appalachian Trail so much. I'm greedy. I want to see it for as long as I can all day. And then I want to sleep a little bit and I want to repeat. So there's no rushing past anything, you know. I mean, because I'm kind of going on about it. So I guess it's a sensitive subject.
No,
there's someone made a comment on, there's this guy who came out, Tim Lewis, and he's done McAfee Knob like loads of times. And someone made a comment on it because he ran with me and took loads of photos of me. He enjoys taking photos. And someone made a comment, and it's the same thing. It's like, why would you run past all the beauty and ignore the trail and disrespect it in that way? And you know what he did? And this is true, man. This is a true story. He shared a photo he took of me crouching down and taking a photo of a spider. And he said, Kristian stopped to take photos and loved the trail just as much as anyone else I've ran with or hiked with. So to those people who ask, why am I like not appreciating the beauty, or aren't I missing out? No, I'm not. I appreciate the beauty and I'm not missing out. I'm just getting a lot of it quite intensely all day for a 45-day period.
Yeah, not to mention at this point you've also done the entire trail twice, and all your other experiences on the trail too. So like you've certainly seen a lot of the Appalachian Trail, and obviously I know you pretty well at this point, so I know how much you love the AT. I am curious though. Now, obviously you can't speak for anybody else, so let's make no mistake about that. But for other ultra runners, has it been, or even, you know, record chasers, again, I don't know what the fuck I'm saying, but you know what I mean. Record chasers. Did I just make that up? Fuck, dude. For other ultra runners, we'll just say, do you think, generally speaking, that most other people are falling into the same category as you, people who really love the trail and this is just their way of experiencing it? Or do you think that there are some people out there that maybe don't care as much about that and are more concerned with the time and the athletic aspect, which not that there's anything wrong with that, by the way. But it's just a different perspective. I don't know. This might be a hard question to answer because I've
already like formulated an answer in my mind.
All right. Well,
I think like putting Ultrarunners in almost a category and saying, does this category of people doing this sport possess this certain quality? I think you could actually, if you open up the category and just say hikers, let's just say people going out on the Appalachian Trail, whether you're an ultra runner, a thru hiker, a day hiker. I mean, they're the three main people who go out. You could actually say that, you could even say that a thru hiker's doing it because, or attempting to do it because there's a huge dropout rate, that they're doing it because they want to have like bragging rights, you know? You could say
or even they just want to accomplish the goal of finishing the whole
trail. It's a goal. I mean,
that's something I talk about all the time on this show. Yeah. I was actually going to bring up that exact point. So yeah, because by the way, anyone listening, hopefully you're still listening. When I said smash the record, I was saying it in an ironic, stupid way because I don't want to smash anything. You know, I was kind of joking. I'm a goofy person, but I think coming back to, having a goal, like, so the day hiker, the record, whatever they're called, chasers, you know, or the thru hikers, like it can be a goal for every single person. It's just a different goal. So I guess the ultra runner's goal is to set like an endurance record. The thru hiker's goal is to get to the end of the trail. And actually, you know what? When I was with the thru hikers in 21, I started reaching inside of myself and actually asking myself, Kristian, you know, you're almost falling into this routine of just hiking, eating, and sleeping. You need to actually, it takes work and energy to make a fire on the nighttime, or it takes work and energy to take the blue blazers and go and look at the views. And even hikers are missing out on this. I mean, ultra runners trying to set an FKT and not lighting fires and then not doing blue blazers. But what I'm saying is it's something within inside yourself that I think you have to reach for and say, I need to actually take time outside of my goal, which is to thru hike, set an endurance record or day hike or section hike this section. And I need to just actually enjoy the view. I need to just sit down for a minute, breathe, and take in the surroundings. So yeah, a little bit different if you're on an endurance record, a bit harder, but you do find other ways to appreciate things, as in being present, and then almost slightly trying to, you know, meditate, like not have so many thoughts going through your head and maybe just try and listen, try and be more present, I guess. So yeah, I think just isolating ultra runners and saying, does this particular group of people possess an inability to appreciate the trail, I think is almost a bit prejudiced, I guess you could say. Because I think everyone has the inability to appreciate the trail. And like I said, you have to reach within, and it takes work and effort to take time out, even thru hikers. When I was section hiking, I had to consciously work on taking time out to make a fire and to take those blue blazers. I'm repeating myself, but I think you get. No, I don't know. You get the idea though? Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And I'm not trying to. I think these are reasonable things for people to ask, certainly, but I definitely agree with your assessment too. And I've always. I'm really not trying to be a dick to the people who ask these questions because I appreciate them asking, and it is, like I said, it's understandable if you don't know much about, FKTs and all this and that. Certainly, if you've never had the pleasure of getting to know someone who's done one, and the pleasure of being able to call that person a friend. But when people say these things like, oh, like they're not taking the time to stop and they're not able to enjoy the trail, these ultra runners, I've always been kind of like, that a lot of thru hikers are the same exact way. Like a lot of thru hikers, myself included, a lot of the time, as much as I hate to admit it, like they're out there on a mission, and they might not be going for a speed record or an endurance record, but they still have miles to make. They still have an objective in mind. And a lot of the time they're also maybe not stopping at every single view or, taking their time and smelling the roses quite as much. So sometimes I just want to tell the people that make these assumptions about people that go for FKTs. I just want to be like, that lots of other people do that too. But I digress. It is a reasonable thing to ask about, certainly. Yeah. And another thing that a lot of people were curious about, Kristian, and this is something that we talked about a little bit, but I'm curious to learn more. How does the gear work? So I know sometimes you're carrying just a small amount of gear while you're running, but then other times you're actually going into the woods with a very minimalist, albeit, but still an overnight gear setup. Can you just talk a little bit about how the gear aspect of something like this works?
Yeah, shout out to Z-Packs.
Yeah,
definitely love those guys, and because the tents are awesome. So yeah, like I have like a duplex, have a sleeping bag, sleeping mat. I have like snacks, an overnight meal, which consisted of we worked out that a quarter pounder or a burger from McDonald's was pretty good with 6 chicken nuggets. Even cold, pack them out; they're really good.
Yeah.
An espresso, like in a plastic sealable container for in the morning. And I'd go out, and so many times I could probably count on both hands, which is probably, I bet the 3 hikers are laughing. Oh, you can count out on both hands how many times you camped out by yourself. What a wuss.
No.
Yeah. I opened myself up for that one. But yeah, like I think around 10 times or whatever, I camped out. So whatever that is, like 20%, 25% of my record attempt, I was camping in the woods by myself with my tent, my sleep system. And the equipment was I used like the Salomon packs. I love the packs, the XA 25. I crammed everything in there. Like I said, a Z-Packs duplex, sleeping bag, air mat, quarter pounder with cheese or whatever. And yeah, got the job done, got up the next day, carried that stuff out. And yeah, so it's not all about a supported record attempt is not always supported, I guess. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
On previous attempts, did you do that as well? Actually spending some nights on trail, or were you always trying to make it to some sort of road crossing where your crew would be at the end of every night? Because because I feel like, as someone who doesn't know a lot about this stuff, I always assumed that people would only go road crossing to road crossing. I'd never heard of someone actually staying out overnight on trail before. And so when you were talking about this when we were together, I thought that was kind of neat.
Yeah, I think the thing is it's trying to reach your daily miles, and to break, what I was shooting for to begin with is an average of 53 miles a day. Minimum as a basic, I've got a chance of getting the record. So if your last road crossing is at say 45 miles, that's no good. You need to take that extra 7 miles into the shelter. I camped in loads of shelters as well, So, I just apologized to the guys. Hey, I'm going to be waking up at 4 a.m. I'm going to try and be as quiet as possible. Go for an endurance record here. So yeah, like if the last road crossing is in the mid 40 miles, like you need to hike in and shelter it or bring a sleep system through, and then you can get your daily miles and meet the crew the next day. And that's that's for that reason, I guess, alone.
Is it awkward telling somebody on trail that you're going for the endurance record? Because I feel like it's important context that people might need to know, especially in a shelter, maybe, if they're sleeping next to you. But at the same time, I can imagine that you might be a little hesitant to so I'm sure you're not going around telling everybody and bragging about it and all this and that. So is it kind of awkward, those conversations sometimes?
Yeah, I remember I got in, I wish I could remember the name of the shelter, but I got in And I don't know if they're a couple or just a guy and a girl, and they were in there in the shelter. And as soon as I got in, it started raining. I was like, this is a great call, because I actually had my tent with me as well, but I decided to camp in the shelter. And I just kept it on the lowdown. I said, guys, I'm a really early riser. I'm going to wake up. I didn't say what time, I didn't think, or maybe I did. I'm going to wake up early. I'm going to be as quiet as I can. And when you wake up in the morning, you won't see me. So, just to let you know. And that's all I said, and they got on with their thing. I did my thing, and that was it, and I think that's kind of the approach I took most times. I didn't advertise it. I didn't run in there like with, fully logoed up and stuff.
Tonight's sleep is sponsored by Solomon now. Obviously.
Yeah, like cameraman running in behind me saying to the shelter guy, do you mind if you're in this shot? It was all low key. Yeah.
Yeah, it makes sense. And another thing, we might have talked about this on previous episodes. I can't remember, but another thing some people had asked about that I'm curious about too is like when you're passing people on trail, obviously sometimes, most of the time, if someone's moving faster than the other person, it's generally understood that just basic pleasantries and you go your separate ways. But sometimes people are chatty. And so, somebody asked the question, would you prefer people on trail try to talk with you, or is that just getting in your way? And I thought that was kind of a funny way of phrasing it, getting in your way.
One song comes to mind, and it's a joke as well. Have you heard that one? Move, bitch, get out the way. Yeah. Get out the way. So I usually just play that on loudspeaker. No, I'm kidding, guys. So, actually, I got a true story. Last year when I was going for my record attempt, I just come out of what's the halfway point where they do the half-gallon challenge? Is it Harper's Ferry?
No, well, Harper's Ferry is West Virginia.
Sorry,
there's that state park there in Pennsylvania. Shit, what the hell is that place called? I can't remember now.
Anyway, I'd come out of the halfway point, just where you do the half-gallon challenge. Maybe it'll come to you, right?
I'll Google it real quick.
It'll come to me. There's two hikers, and they said, hey, do you mind if we jog with you for a bit? And I said, yeah, sure. It's a long, flat section before you go up into a climb. And so I said, did you find the name?
Oh, yeah. It's Pine Grove Furnace. Yeah, I totally forgot about that. I totally blanked on it.
Yeah, Pine Grove Furnace. So these two hikers, a guy and a girl, and they said, do you mind if we jog with you for a bit? We heard that you're going for an endurance record, And they said, yeah, sure, that'd be cool. So
that's bold of them, by the way. If I heard someone was going for an endurance record, I'd be like scattering off the trail to try. I wouldn't look at them. I wouldn't. That's very bold of them to be like, can we freaking join you for a bit? I love that. Sorry.
Yeah, that's cool. Did. And to be fair, like it was a flat section. I think we were jogging at like 4 miles an hour or something. So it was kind of slow, And then we say goodbye to each other, and I carry on up the climb. And this is a bit where I was saying this kind of douche grade stuff. It wasn't steep enough to hike, and so I had to jog it. So I jogged all the way up this big steep incline, and I got to the top, and I think I stopped. I was doing a stretch, and just out of nowhere, the guy out of the couple came with me. He just jumped out of the bush, not jumped out of the bushes, but he was on the trail.
Yeah.
And I said, you ran all of that with your pack on? I'm proud of myself for running it. Like, congrats, man. That's sick. And he said, yeah, what? I was really inspired by you. And after our conversation, do you mind if I hang with you for a bit? And I said, yeah, sure. That'd be great. Anyway, we spent the next hour and 45 minutes running together on the trail. He took out some beef jerky that he shot. Some
nice
venison or whatever it was, and went hunting, made beef jerky.
I know what you mean. Venison jerky, whatever.
Yeah, venison jerky. Yeah, homemade jerky. And he gave me some on trail, and he met my crew and stuff. So the answer to the question who posted that is no one's getting in my way, really. I love hikers. I am a hiker myself, and I love the company. And if someone wants to hang with me and I'm having a great conversation, that helps me. That helps my day.
Mm-hmm.
So
I'm assuming they have to still be able to keep up with you. You're probably not gonna slow down just for them, but if they can hang, that's cool, man. That's cool.
If you can hang, then that's it. Like obviously, on a endurance, like there's a certain like speed. I mean, even with through hiking, right? There's a certain speed you're going, and you don't like. I know through hikers actually all hike their own paces, and then they come together when there's a viewpoint or at the end of the day, but they don't actually hike together in groups necessarily unless they're hiking the same pace as their buddies or their tramley. So yeah, it's the same with me as well. If someone's can be prepared to go the same pace as me, which is about 3 or 4 miles an hour, yeah, that's good. I'm good with that.
That's cool, man. That's cool. All right, dude. We're getting towards the end here. I'm really excited to hear your end of episode story because it involves me and I'm not sure exactly what Kristian's going to say here. So, dude, let's hear it. Hopefully it's a good story.
Trail tales, how Kyle spoilt my hike. Actually, no, I mean, you know what? And I've told this story to other people, including my girlfriend here in Spain. So yeah, you don't know because I never mentioned it, but we met for a hike, and we went up to the kind of the summit. Can you remember the name of that?
I think it was North Kinsman in the Whites.
North Kinsman, yeah. And it's a really nice Kinsman's Trail. It's a really nice trail, and there's a couple of small river crossings where you have to hop across some rocks. Yeah. So so anyway, here goes my story. So actually you were in front of me on the hike going up. And what I noticed when you got to the river crossings is how relaxed you were. And we were just hiking. We weren't running, but I noticed like you actually crossed that river and hopped on those rocks as if it was like a zebra crossing and there was no danger of anything happening to you. And I observed this because I'm very observant of people's body language, people's ability, their coordination. And prior to me hiking with you, I'd crossed the same river crossing. That was my favorite trail. So I was up and down that trail like all week. Mm-hmm. And I crossed the trail with a little bit of tension in my shoulders, a little bit of fear inside of me, and thought to myself, like I was a little bit tense, and I was behind you. I watched you cross, and then also on the way down, I observed you, and I think there was 1 or 2 other small river crossings. So I actually took away from that hike with you, Kyle, like the through hiker approach to crossing, unless it's just you personally crossing a river. It's like just every single time I crossed a river after that, and I'm not joking, this is an honest story, I thought about you. I thought about how relaxed you were. No, this is the truth, man. On my record attempt this year, and I crossed the rivers in the same manner. Eventually, it just became natural, and I didn't need to think back to hiking behind you and stuff. But yeah, so it's a true story. I observed you cross the river in a through hiker style, very relaxed, very confident, but in an unarrogant way. And I adopted it and I used it on my speed record attempt, man. So that's a true story.
That's so cool, man. Oh, that's so cool. I can't wait to tell my girlfriend about this one too. Yeah, that's super cool. I'm happy to hear that. I've honestly haven't really thought that much about the way that I cross rivers. I don't even really remember there being any like big rivers on that trail, to be honest.
They were small.
They were small ones. I don't know. Yeah. When I was a kid, I used to love just like hopping around on rocks and stuff. And now now that I think about it, I guess I do kind of take pride in my river crossings. Like I remember there's been a couple times where like maybe there's a group kind of chilling next to a river, and then when I'll come up on it and I'll be like, all right, I gotta fucking show them how it's done, and just boom, 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 hop right across that shit. So look, it's already going to my head. This is not good.
But I feel so good though that you said that, because I thought, am I just imagining this, or is Kyle a badass river crosser? So
that's so awesome, dude. I appreciate you sharing that, man. And yeah, that's really cool that you're so observant of people that you would notice something like that. Maybe I need to consider being more observant when it comes to these things. It's especially cool because obviously you're quite competent in the mountains, to put it mildly. And so the fact that you're still wanting to learn, even from someone who quite honestly has accomplished a lot less than you have, that's super cool. And I think that really speaks to your attitude, Kristian. And again, this is something that I went on and on about in our last episode, but for everybody listening, I really encourage you to go follow Kristian, because he's super humble. He loves the Appalachian Trail, and if you couldn't tell already, which I'm sure you could, but obviously this is so much more than just trying to break a speed record for him. In fact, I'm sure there's easier trails out there that he could go get a speed record on if he wanted to, but that's not what it's about. This man loves the AT. And so, dude, thank you for coming back on here. And I really hope that we get a chance to cross paths again in person at some point next year when you're back in the States.
Yeah, me too. It's been a pleasure. I really enjoy coming on your show. In fact, all the other podcasts I'm on are all kind of ultra running podcasts and stuff. So I feel it's kind of a way to just, I don't know, talk about hiking and a different aspect of the trail. And also, I wouldn't say defend ultra running, but maybe give an insight to thru hikers or people who don't understand ultra running. Maybe that, hey guys, us ultra runners, hikers as well, so. Yeah, man. Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Of course. And that's another reason why I like having you on, and other people too. I mean, I don't have a ton of, runners on, or, FKT. Every time I say this, I crack up. FKT people, for the lack of a better term. I had Will Peterson on a few weeks ago, who has the unsupported record for the long trail. And cool. I don't know, part of the reason why I like to have you guys on is for the same thing that you just mentioned there, kind of bringing the two communities together and kind of bridging that gap and giving some understanding to regular hikers what it's like. And one thing that I've learned to kind of close this episode out is that it's not, let me say that again. Setting an FKT like this at the end of the day, it's an incredible achievement that takes, it's not something that just anybody can do. But at the end of the day, they're still doing the same exact trail as all the thru hikers and even the day hikers. It's the same terrain, and a lot of the little mundane things that apply to even just a 2-mile day hike are still going to apply to an FKT, especially on the Appalachian Trail. So with that said, Kristian, dude, where can people go follow you? Any plugs you want to make? Especially people that might be curious about your endurance attempt next year.
Yeah, I guess the main way to kind of check out me is going to my Instagram, and it's called Move Bitch Get Out the Way. Actually, you know what? It's my name and then the word ultra. So Kristian with a K, spelt the Scandinavian way, Kristian, and then ultra, Ultra, just like one word, no spaces. And that's my Instagram. And I guess what we didn't talk about is the dances that I did on the Appalachian Trail.
Yes, I saw those, dude. I saw those on Instagram. So good.
Yeah. So I did these reels, and it kept me entertained. And so anyone who wants to check out what I'm doing, go to my Instagram. You can find out about my Southbound record this year, my coaching. I coach athletes or whatever, people who want to run ultra marathons. And I'm going for the endurance record on the Appalachian Trail next year. And I'll have live tracking, and everyone can follow the journey there. So just reach out to me if you've got any questions. I'm happy to. But I definitely don't want to be like I'm the, spokesperson for the ultra running community. Of course not. Because I'm definitely an individual, and I identify with everyone. I really try to think that I'm just I'm just someone who enjoys the AT and people who go on it. So whether you're an ultra runner or a hiker, man, I'm all good.
Awesome. Yeah. Dude, thank you so much, Kristian. Best of luck next year. And maybe we'll have to do another episode before you start and see how your training's going and see how you're feeling right before. So thank you, man. And thank you everybody for watching and for listening. And if you made it all the way to the end of the episode, especially if you've made it all the way to the end of a number of these episodes and you haven't subscribed on YouTube or you haven't left a 5-star review on iTunes or Spotify, then what are you doing? I'm trying to get the show to 1,000 reviews on Apple Podcasts and Spotify, respectively. And I mean, at this point, dude, we're ticking up there in subscribers, but we still got a lot of work to do. So subscribe. Let's see if we can get this to 5,000 or even 10,000 subscribers on YouTube. That'd be awesome. And I will see everybody next week. Cool. That's it, my friend.
All right.